So this again I thought is important because when we do an MIGS, there is no way of assessing whether what we are doing is actually going to be effective, and no way of predicting whether this patient is going to need medicines, whether it's going to go into complete success, qualified success, or whether this case is going to fail. So I'll skip the slides because now this question is much more valid because there are a lot of combination MIGS procedures that are being offered. Let's say iStent with iDevice, or combinational GAT with something else, or KDB with something else. So the both incisional excisional procedures or stents with other procedures are being combined. The question that we have to ask is there a way to assess whether whatever minimally invasive surgeries we are doing, whether it is maximally effective or not, or even if optimally effective? So the question is, how do we assess the outflow pathway intraoperatively? We can do that with handheld ASOCTs or OCT angiography. How do we assess the vascular plexus? I showed the slides of the drainage of aqueous into from the episcleral veins. So how do we assess that? We can use OCT angio. We can't use FFA in India. I think we don't have microscope with the filters to do intraop FFAs. Intraoperatively, we only have OCT angiography, where we can see, or we can use intraoperative ASOCT to find out what level are we incising and what is happening. But a more simple technique we all know is blanching, or what we call as the episcleral wave. So episcleral wave is nothing but, suppose you have excised, or I excise the trabecular meshwork tissue from inside. So if I have excised this cloaca, I just go there and inject saline, and you can see that the whole of the sclera has become white. So the episcleral vessels have blanched out. This is called the blanching effect. But I went one step further to see whether I can see what veins are draining into that area where I have excised the TM. So you can see now I inject trypan blue, the normal trypan blue that we use for staining the capsule. When we do that under the air bubble, you can see now such a large area of blanching, almost 3 clock hours. But what lights up initially is only one large superficial episcleral vein. So it's hard to believe that such a large area is being drained. One vein is actually draining one large area. And with time, as we keep injecting, the beauty now is as if some of the collector channels or veins have some valves which open at a certain pressure. So if you keep injecting, now not only this veins, but you can see now the rest of the deeper scleral plexuses also light up with the dye. So the deeper plexuses possibly operate at a higher pressure, whereas the superficial veins operate at a lower pressure. We don't know, but intraoperatively I tried doing this. We studied this in 167 eyes, both blanching as well as a trypan blue. What we found out was there were 4 patterns which is already described by Ike Ahmed. We have those 4 patterns. We found 4 patterns. One is the superficial vein staining, one is the deep vein staining. The other areas are a diffuse kind of a bluish hue. You won't find any one vein draining it, but you will just find a bluish hue, which means that in that eye, you only have very deep plexuses draining it. You don't have any superficial vein, which is very difficult to think of. Then how is the deep veins draining it to the systemic circulation? We don't know. And the other type is a reticular pattern, which means that it's a spider web kind of small vessels which are there at the limbus, but you don't have any vein lighting up further. So you really don't know whether those few vessels at the limbus are draining such a large area. We don't know. So some videos, some people might have seen these videos, what I refer to as blanching, you can see here. You can see the whitening now as I keep injecting, and the blanching also happens in one quadrant at some time, and if you keep injecting, the blanching happens in a wider area. So that's simple blanching that you can do to assess if whatever you have done actually has helped aqueous outflow through that region. Now the procedure about trypan blue. Now this is the area that I have caused a blanching. You can see the whitening, but now see the kind of veins that are there. There is 2 deep veins. The blanching happens here. There are 3 veins here, one here, and one here. And there are some deeper veins which are staining, all in that same area. But it's not so simple because the blanching is seen and the trypan blue staining is in the same area. Does it happen in all the areas? No, it does not. You can see here when we inject, now the blanching happens from here to here almost. But see what happens when you so now you can see that there is a very diffuse hue here, but then here there is one vein, superficial vein lighting up. So even in different regions, the kind of venous drainage that happens in each different sectors or quadrants is completely different. It's not simple. The variations in each individual to individual, are so huge that you cannot generalize to come to an algorithm. What we could find out that if you don't have a blanching or a trypan blue staining in less than 3 quadrants, if you see more than 2 quadrants or 3 quadrants of staining and trypan blue, you know that that patient may be free of medications. But if you see it in less than that, possibly this patient is going to require medications or going to fail. That's all you can have. So this is the patient where you saw blanching happening, but then the trypan blue happening quite far away from the area of blanching. This also happens. So we don't know the reasons. So the quadrants of blanching do not always correlate to the trypan blue staining quadrants, which may be very different, and does not always correlate to the IOP outcomes. We have eyes where the trypan blue staining happened in all the quadrants, but then the IOP rose up to 22, 21, and we end up giving medications. The anatomical variations, both in the superficial and deep plexus, are huge. From individual to individual, and these probably account for the lack of a generalized algorithm. We yet do not know how to identify the aqueous veins. If we know that, then possibly we can maximally optimize our site of MIGS. The Schlemm's canal dynamics, like I said, we do not know what happens. We are just taking off the resistance by taking off the trabecular meshwork. So what happens to the collector channels? What happens to the pressure outside that? Obviously, the body and the episcleral venous pressure is higher. So what happens to that? The body is not going to keep quiet. There are variations that are seen. On ASOCT, you see scarring. That we do see on ASOCT. There are different types of scarring that you can see. You may see an open gutter like this, where you see that the gutter that you have created by excising the TM is still intact. There may be sub-incisional scarring, as you can see here, beneath the gutter. So the question here is, where exactly these fibroblast or healing response come from? If it is beneath the Schlemm's canal, it has to be from the sclera. So where exactly the fibroblasts are coming from? The other type of gutter is seen in, you can have mild, moderate or severe depending on how much is the hyperintensity. And in GAT, you can see this kind of a trench pattern of scarring, wherein not only you see subincisional scarring, but you also see that you can see the trabecular meshwork leaflet, but the scarring response has gone beyond that. So you don't know what has happened here. The other interesting possibility is if you have access, you can use the intraoperative OCT. You can actually incise at various steps as you're incising. Where exactly? Is it part of the trabecular meshwork that you're incising, or close to the Schlemm's canal that you're, small base line that you're excising? What is exactly happening? You can see the leaflet also once you've excised. And you can actually see, this was one patient where we actually saw something spurting out of the Schlemm's canal, which is nothing but blood and other efflux happening. But this requires a constant person or one or two persons to, when you're doing the surgery with your two hands, your focus and your tilt of the eye changes. So the OCT, there has to be two technicians or your fellows or residents who have to keep the focus constant on the region that is being imaged. So this is what I was speaking of, that you can see that as soon as you incise, there is an efflux that is happening. You see that in most of the eyes, but at the end, all's well, that's gone well. Aqueous angiography, yes, people are pursuing. You can actually see intraoperative as well as postoperative as to which collector channels new recruitment has happened in which area, but this is not widely available everywhere. So this is one option that you can choose if you have access to that. And this is something that's coming up in the future, which is called robotic visible light OCT. This actually visualizes the Schlemm's canal in different segments, and then creates a 3D reconstruction of how the Schlems canal is in all those regions. So this is actually like seeing inside the eye as to after your procedure and before the procedure, what has happened to the Schlems canal. So this is something that's coming up. It's a doubt whether how much it will be available in India and when is it going to come. Thank you.